I am here sticking labels on pots. You can imagine that it is really nice to know that I have reached the pinnacle of my career. And they don't always stick, and it's the most frustrating job ever. Yeah, I've finished now. I might as well be dead. The Royal Horticultural Society have said we are in crisis. The industry is lacking youngsters coming through. This is Eggleston Hall Gardens, and over the next 12 months we're going to take you on a journey of what it's like to run a nursery garden. You find us on week 26, up the top of the garden. It's very, very hot, but strangely enough there is a breeze, quite a strong breeze, and it's unusual because it's a hot one. Looking at some of these plants that we brought up earlier in the year, some have been causing us some consternation. The Lysimachia, it's a little variety called Candela, and you can see they're not really thriving. Let's have a close look at one. There. You see there's hardly anything happening. Now what's happening is this has got frosted and it's trying its hardest to put on some extension growth, but the stem is damaged or whatever. So if we look carefully, you can see there's some nice young growth. Now we want to put all of the plant's energies into that young growth. So what we're going to do is get in with our secateurs. I'm just going to snip off, and we're just going to leave this nice young growth here. They grow very quick, and I've had it before with them because it's quite a sappy growth that they're prone to being nipped back by the frost. But they flower late summer and into autumn, and they are very, very attractive. It's a spike of white flower. There we are. And yeah, we have a couple of hundred of them here, so I'm going to just tidy all of these up and see how it goes. It's a little baby woodpecker, just fledged. Let's see if we can get a closer look. Hey, you don't see that very often. Pepper. There he is, he's just in there. You'll be fine. Here's a little flower that's exclusive to us. It's a little old thing that we found growing in the gardens. We didn't breed it this way, but it's an almost black delphinium. There we are. You see it's cream on the outside and completely black. It turns even blacker. If I can just starts off sort of like a wishy-washy grey, and then it goes to this brown colour. It is the most odd thing. I think it's horrible. But flower arrangers seem to be really liking it, and I've got quite a back order for them. All right, Pepper, what do you think? Rubbish, isn't it? But it is, you know, it's no accounting for taste. That's weird. Now, several times I've been asked about these frames that we use. Now, these are made of some sort of galvanized wire or rod. I don't know what gauge it is, it's not my sort of thing. And they are quite expensive. I think we pay around £14–15 for each one. And we've got several hundred of them. I would say that they returned their value, their cost, which was several £1,000s. I would say they returned their cost within a year. Because we're set on a hillside and it slopes from the east to the west down there and over those hills, and also from the north down to the south, stuff falls over really easy, plants fall over really easy, and we get so much wind here. This is the northern Pennines of England. It whistles up your it whistles up this nursery. Some smutty thing was happening there, and I'm trying to avoid it. I'm trying to clean up my act, and it's just a nightmare. And we would have 2, 3, 4 people spending a whole morning standing things up, and one big puff of wind and they were all back down again. But these have been a godsend for us. They are made in Germany, I think. I don't know why we can't make them in this country. I don't think there's a trademark on them, and it'd be pretty hard to have that. They come in various sizes. There you are. Oh, it looks like a Dutch name, I don't know. Let me give you, there you are. Now, we sourced them through an agent, a supplier called PG Horticulture. Very, very good people, very helpful, like LBS Horticulture. And I just remind you, I don't get any product placement or anything from saying these things. If things are good, I will tell you they are good. If they're crap, I will mention that as well. I am sorry about this wind. Anyway, they are absolutely a godsend. I cannot, well, I haven't got words to describe how useful they are. And they are simply just bent over and welded. They, as I say, they come into sizes 10 litres, 5 litres, 7.5 litres and 3 litres. I could do with a 1.5 litre actually, but they're just fantastic. So anyway, it's got a nursery. You can make them yourself if you're that way inclined and clever enough. I'm not. Or just contact the PG Horticulture or that tag that I showed you. Much of this stuff up here is now ready for potting on. The Trollius there, we were doing some younger ones earlier, but those were done earlier in the year, you probably remember, and they need moving on. The stuff on the wall we looked at last week, sorry, maiden trees. If I get any complaints about getting out of breath, I do apologise. I have 3 medical conditions apparently. I have very high blood pressure, so we take medication for that. Oh God, I have split retinas in the eyes, so I've had some cryosurgery on that. Falling to pieces. But the worst thing is, all my work in life, I've suffered with a rheumatic problem called ankylosing spondylitis, and as I've got older, it affects the chest, and you can't, the soft tissue of the ribs, so when you go up a hill or something, you can't get enough breath, you know, it's hard to expand your chest. I sound like one of them bloody old people complaining about their bits and pieces. Other than that, in a perfect health. But the spondylitis is a pain because it affects other joints and it affects soft tissue, and it mimics angina and heart problems, because you think, oh, he's out of breath or anything like that. It's just that you cannot get the air into your chest, you can't expand it enough. It's a pain in the ass. And then it affects fingers and knees, and anybody that's got it, some people get it mildly, and I did when I was younger, but as I've got older, it's got worse and irritating. Look at them things there, aren't they beautiful? Yeah. What's that blackbird doing? He just sat there scratching himself. He seems to be puffing. Perhaps it's the heat. It's not very hot, Blackie. I don't know what's going on with him. I'm hoping he's always having a scratch. Perhaps he's got a flea. He's got one wing down there. He could have been fighting. See that dog? He's not in the slightest bit bothered about that blackbird. They will not touch birds. Where are you, Finn? Why are you filmed? Well, she won't kill anything. She just likes chasing it. You're an embarrassment. That's it for this sequence. Oh yeah, apart from them, lovely little Piceas. Which one is that now? See, I even have to look at bloody labels because I can't remember things. Aureus spicata, yeah. And that's those golden horizons that Thomas topped out to see what would happen. We got a bit sick of growing them as tall trees, and I think he's topped it here to see what happens. It'll be interesting. It'll spread out more. There's some normal cedars over there. What I'm doing here is marking up some lupins. These lupins we will select out. We're looking for unusual colours. We're also looking for a good range of colour. And I mean, that there is really interesting. It has almost a washed blue that's going into the white. That's a particularly nice colour. I'll put 2 pieces of blue tape around that because it's particularly nice. In fact, that whole clump of plants is interesting in itself. But we can't have too many, but I particularly like this one. It's very unusual. But if we need to choose not too many orange ones because they do revert back. The other thing I'm doing is selecting some that have almost gone over and are set in seed, because they will flower earlier. They have a tendency to flower early. And some are just coming into flower like these. These are particularly nice plants. This is unusual. I don't particularly like it. It looks a bit dull to me, but it's still worth having. We only want a couple of heads of each. Or if I get the sense that they're not big setters of seeds, not all lupins are as ready to set seed as others. You will find some that hardly set seed at all. Look at this here now. It hardly looks like it's set in seed. And yet next to it is another plant completely covered in pods. So we have to try and make a judgment of how many we line off. So if there was lots of seed on one plant, I might only tape up one head. But if it was very low seeding, or I got the sense that it wasn't a strong seeder, then I might tape up 3 or 4. They will all be mixed. If I had more time, I would, I mean, look at that, that's lovely. If I had more time, I would like to spend a few years just isolating them and growing them vegetatively. But over the years I've just culled and propagated ones, and we've now got a nice balance of seed. If we just left them to their own devices, as I've said on many times, they would just turn back to the orange eventually. There's a lovely strong red down here. Well, pinky red. I'm not very good on colours. Cerise, magenta, pink, dark pink, blue, and that is lovely. And looks to me like it's going to be a good cedar as well, so we'll mark up one of those. Maybe two. This is another nice peony. I have absolutely no memory of what it is, but I will enter it as a caption. Beautiful thing. Nice big heads. And the lovely campanula. Look at that. It's just starting to come out. But the plant that I'm really here for is this one. This is Gillenia. Normally it doesn't grow this tall, which is strange because some of our plants have suffered in the drought. But this one, the Gillenia trifoliata, these are lovely fluffy heads of starry white flowers. It is so popular with customers. Normally it really doesn't grow that tall. There's another one down here. It usually is about half this size, but it seems to have thrived in the early dry spring. Trifolia just simply means it's got 3 leaflets on a leaf. Well, 3 leaflets. It's just a descriptive term. These borders really do need a big sort of go through. This was a peony I grew from seed years ago. This is its first flowering. It's a seedling of a species called Rockii. It's doing okay, but it's not going to be a world beater. There's a Decentranthus, the set wall. This is the white form. There's seed around all over, the bees like it. One of the early delphiniums has come into flower, much shorter than it should be. This is Constance Rivet. It should be much taller than that, but it is a very nice, clean white. No real bee as such, but it's a very pure form. More Cephalaria. Things must be getting back to normal. We're plagued by aeroplanes today. Now this is a beautiful rose. This is Rosa Moisei geranium. It's had loads of flowers on it, and it's just doing wonderful here. It's a shrub rose. There, you can get straight Moisei and it has these big hips on it afterwards. This one has good hips, but it has this lovely geranium red flower, which I think is lovely. This is an old rose. It's been around for centuries. This is Rosa Mundi. It's a lovely thing. It has a reasonable scent to it as well. I'm not a lover of roses, but I think if you're going to have a rose, you want one that's scented. But it's, as I say, it's been around for centuries, and it's a lovely little thing. It's not the strongest grower, but the flowers, I think, more than make up for that. How about this then? Look at that box there, from the music store. Great big box. What's in this box? There's paper. 2 packets of guitar picks. Can you believe that? That's just like 2 packets of guitar picks. I can't believe it.
So what we've got here is some London Pride. I think it's Saxifraga. It's either Erbium or Umbros. I can't remember exactly that Latin name. But it's some we've dug up from our garden. And it's a bit of a funny thing. It's really different to the little Alpine Saxifrage. It's really quite spreading. Does well in moist and shade as well. But yeah, we're just going to show you how we propagate this. I mean, it's fortunate actually, as we've sort of picked it out, it's sort of come apart bit by bit. We've got some parts here that's still attached. It's simply a case of just easing them apart, just like that. So you can see there, it's got some nice leaf on the bottom. But what I'll do, ready for sticking these into the pots, I'll cut the flowers out and I'll remove a majority of these lower leaves that are just about finished. It is a bit of a funny thing in pots, especially because of how it grows. It can end up being a bit leggy and lanky, but as soon as you plant it in the garden, it's really happy and it just runs and looks after itself. But in a pot, it's the sort of thing we don't like it to get into big pots because we'll have to normally restart it or break it down, because it just sort of ends up flopping all over the spot. Because as you can see there, it's just this massive leaf and very little root. But even there, when I can pull off little bits like that, and it's worth me trying to stick them into a pot as well, because it's essentially, even when they don't have a bit of root, it's just like a little cutting really. Taking these when they haven't got any root. And it's the easiest thing to grow. We do these every year and get most of them take. It really is quite a nice thing. You can see there, it's just about going over now. And I can show you as well. Got out here, if that follows, there's a nice variegated one. There we have. And yeah, these are some nibs that we sort of did in spring of the variegated one. It's one of those variegations that looks like it's just a bit vomit splattered rather than it actually being a nice clean margin. But you can see there what I mean about it in a pot. That in the garden would look fine because it'd stand up on its own 2 feet, but when it's in a pot it just goes floppy like that. Still, it's a very nice plant. It does a job in a shady spot where other stuff wouldn't grow. But yeah. Right. Yeah, now I've got them all separated out, I'll start potting them up. You can see there I'm potting them, and what I'm doing, obviously, because it's no good it being potted like that because it's just going to rock out. As I'm potting them, I'm trying to sink them down a lot more, because realistically they'll probably just grow from lower down anyway. They're not just going to carry on growing from the tips. They'll probably just start forming a bit more of a rosette later on this year. And I know it might look like I've left quite a lot of leaf on them, which to be honest I have, but so long as we keep them well wet and out of the sun, we're just going to have them somewhere shady and keep them well watered, they should be fine really, because a lot of them do have a bit of root. I would normally probably remove a load more leaves than this, but I think normally in the past they've never really suffered, so I'm just going to try doing them like this and leave them with a bit more leaf and see what happens. That's it.
Now it's taken 2 to 3 months, but earlier in the year we cut back some camellias in pots, right back hard, and you can see they're just starting to develop buds. Now this went from about 4 foot, 5 foot down to 1 foot. I do believe there are some others up here we can have a little look at. There's another one. You can see the buds starting to form. And this one. And then along the base of this one. Sometimes it is the only option with them when they get long and leggy, especially in pots. They probably won't all survive, but you have to make a judgment call on it at some stage, and if they're looking rubbish, you just have to accept that yeah, this one hasn't shown any buds yet, but I've just done a scratch on it, you can see there, and it's plenty green underneath, and actually underneath there I can just feel a raised section. There's another one over the back there, you can see the buds are coming on the top. This hard pruning of camellias can be performed outside as well, but you need to do this at around March time, in my opinion. A lot depends. I haven't seen any absolute failures yet. You can see they're just starting to break away. So we'll have another look at them in a month's time, at the end of July, and see how the buds are forming. But I'm pretty confident we'll end up with a nice, much bushier plant. We are in the middle of something like a summer gale, but I really want to show you this plant. This is a grevillea, and this flowers nearly all summer. And this is the North Pennines, and we do have to wrap it up in fleece for the winter. But it's been here about, I planted it about 10 years ago now. It has the most exquisite flowers, and bees love it. It's a cracking thing. Now this is interesting. This is growing in one of our larger conifers. We've had one over the cafe last year, and no, you can't smoke it. It's just straightforward hemp. It gets very, very tall, but its mellowing properties, trust me, are zero. You can see it's just grown in that conifer, and it's up here now 4 foot. Policeman spotted it today. Some of last year's alpines, we brought them down to re-propagate them, and they're young and full of vigour, so they're doing quite well. These were really wanted to bulk these up. These are Helianthemum, and this is one called Raspberry Ripple. These tomato plants are doing really well. I think I'm going to put some of these out for sale, but I'm also going to pot a few on. I'll maybe do that tomorrow. I think we'll just put them into 10-litre pots and just grow them on in here, probably. We'll see. Right. What I'm doing here, I've got some old tomato plants, and I thought we would show you what I do with tomato plants, the excess ones that I don't sell. A bit of a short week this week because, as I've explained, most of my week has been watering, labelling pots, which I never wanted in the first place. So, you come in here, we're going in there, I'll show you what I'm going to do. Sometimes our tomato plants, they go over, and I've got a few left over this year. There's a variety called Gigantea and some Bloody Butchers. So I've got, these are in 1 litre pots. So there's no hard and fast rule about doing them. Just make a hole with your hands, push it well in, bang it down. Hole with your hands. I'm going to do this in real time because sometimes people fuck about all day long putting in 2 tomato plants. They look at it, they stand back from it, they sort of like have fantasies about it. And really, all it requires is banging in a pot and some method of growing them. Now, it really doesn't take long. These are in 1 litre pots, so we can just put them in. And we're going to stick a cane in each one. I think we're going to stick a cane in each one. Yeah. There's another cane in there. Another cane in there. Now I've got 3 of this Gigantea. It's supposed to be a really big tomato. Broke off a leaf there, don't worry about that. It's just judicial pruning. I'll just get the other pots. With tomatoes, we're going to cordon these. So if you look between the leaves, I don't know if I've already done this, we're just going to nip out any side shoots. Here's a good one. You can see on this one, there's a side shoot there. We don't want that. We want a single leader going up. Just to grow them cordon. The tomatoes are really a bush plant. They just fall around all over the place. And we really don't want that. We're going to, I'm not going to use the taping machine because you won't have one at home. And you might as well see the old-fashioned way of doing it is with just a bit of twine, figure of 8, and tie it in. Left over right, right over left. Job done. Tie it in, figure of 8. And there's another one. These are the 3 Giganteas. Some of the old gardeners years ago, I think I might have been through this before, but they used to like their plants to wilt before they planted them out, like this one. You see this? It's wilting like it's thirsty. Well, it is thirsty. And they were convinced that that used to make them grow better. They particularly did it with geraniums, but they also did it with tomatoes because they figured that the plant would be really putting on growth, looking for moisture. And there is some truth in the fact that plants like a dry cycle if they're wet all the time. It is very unnatural if you think about it. Tomatoes, but any plant comes to that really, unless it's in really dry areas. Most things are at the mercy of the weather. Now these others are a variety called Bloody Butcher. You can see I'm just parting the soil with my hands. You could half fill the pot and do it a good tap. I just need 2 more, I think. 1, 2, 3, 6. Another one here. Oops. You didn't see that. I'm trying to rush a little bit so it doesn't get too monotonous. But I think it's good to see things done in real time and unedited. But as I say, I'm not going to fart it out. Those dogs are desperate to go out. We usually go out with a gun around this time of the evening just to see if there's any rabbits about where they shouldn't be or where we don't want them. and they just hang around my feet from about 5 o'clock onwards. It's now 6 o'clock, so they're getting really irritated. They're just saying, hurry up, you old twat. So just get the final pot. Now this greenhouse, if you look at this greenhouse, you'll see there's all sorts of structures on the walls. These are Victorian glass houses, and those structures up there, those black rods, were actually used for growing melons. But today, we're going to use them for growing tomatoes. And in a little while, we're going to be growing some sweet and hot peppers. Now, so I'm just going to adapt to them. I need a couple more tomato plants. Put that one down through there. So here we've actually planted now in 10 minutes probably. Eight tomato plants. Because, you know, if you like farting about and stuff and just like taking your time, there's nothing wrong in that. It's pottering. I think pottering is a really good occupation for people. It's great. It's good for your mind. Not having to be anywhere or do anything, or you're not doing things for profit, just for pleasure. Unfortunately, I don't have that pleasure or that ability at the moment because time is at a minimum. Okay, now this could look a little undignified. Please don't film my ass. Right, up here. Got these old things here. There. And there. So what I'm going to do is just adapt these. We'll just a bit more twine. This is just an ordinary jute twine. You can get it at the garden centre. You're probably better off getting it online because garden centres are fucking expensive. We're just going to tie this in. And that there. And we'll tie this one here. Okay. Okay, so we'll put one of them in there. And then we'll just tie that into there. Put one of these down here. Down there. Those are peppers. Hot peppers mixed. We'll deal with them another time. And we'll have one down this end. So we'll put one there. And another one in there. That one there. This one here. And that's it really. Obviously, the next thing we need to do there's nothing more to it than this. just give them a feed. We'll let them grow in for 2 to 3 weeks and then just give them a feed after that. I'm not going to tie them all in, obviously. Oh, bollocks. Oh. Obviously the next thing, I think the cameraman's falling asleep. She's got her eyes closed. Jesus, prone to that. There we go. Set of tomatoes. We'll look at them again in 2 or 3 weeks and you'll be amazed. And there we are. I decided to get rid of the last 2 or 3 old lettuce and just give them away. And that is leek plants planted at a density of 40 to a pot. Over there are the ones that were at 20 to a pot. It'll be interesting to see the difference in size and how they cope and if they get any problems at all. That down there is a rabbit trap to catch the little bastard that's been eating my leeks. You wouldn't think they'd like onion family, would you? Bloody rabbits. So, there we are. Those are the tomatoes. What I failed to point out earlier is that these tomatoes are seed raised in this country. They are not bought in plants and they've had no heat whatsoever. They haven't been raised under heat or germinated under heat. Other than being in under a cloche or in a glass house. That's the only protection they've been given. One of the things with tomatoes in this country, unless we get plants off to an early start under heat, we can't go up very many trusses. The old way of doing it was to grow up about 3 trusses. That's the groups of flowers, which we would do with these, which is why I haven't gone right up the top. The old Victorians used to have beds full of muck, and then they had stove houses and they had all sorts of heating. If you got involved in that, each tomato would be costing you 50 quid. It'd be ridiculous. So let's see how far we can go with no heat, just solar heat from the natural light through this glass. They've got July, they've got August and most of September. I think it's probably why one of the reasons in this country green chutney was very popular, because you end up with quite a lot of tomatoes and most of them are green, they don't ripen. It'll be interesting to see now that the climate's changing, and it's we have to learn to do these things, you know, to make use of what we've got without the extra inputs. It's all about inputs. And unless you can harness solar power for your energy, well, you know, you are paying for fossil fuels, and it was all right long ago, but not now. These are little seedling maples that we did earlier in the year, and somehow they have been swamped with some foxgloves, and I know that they had some foxgloves near them called Digitalis mertenensis, which is a lovely sort of crushed strawberry colour. So I'm just weeding them out at the moment here, and these have all come out of the maples. So what we're going to do now is just pop them up. There's no reason why you can't grow them on. This is some that we took out earlier.
So every now and then we find little seedlings, these foxgloves in like our plants. So, well, they're quite useful and they've got a lovely little flower. So we're just going to put them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sell them on.
Next
lovely
year.
Though, yeah, for next year.
Actually, foxgloves are biennial, so you plant them this year and then they flower next year. So
Also known as Digitalis.
yeah,
So
excellent, and that's just how we do.
that's what we're going to do, yeah. Just fill the pot up, little pot, and then get one with a bit of root on. stick your finger in.
Like the finger
Leave it around. And then, there we go.
Gently done.
Clara, sticking a finger in and wiggling it round.
I'm just...
Does it give you flashbacks of the doctor, Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm just getting distracted by your burps.
Yeah.
He's got a talent, ladies and gentlemen.
A talent for what?
At,
Belching, burping.
yeah.
It's disgusting.
I feel pressured now to do one, but I don't feel like I've got one brewing.
He's got the force within him.
The force with it. Are you doing anything interesting there, actually?
No, it's a euonymus. It's boring as shit, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have to agree with that.
It's quite different. We need a bit of gold, you know, in the garden.
Oh, shut up, Clara.
Yeah, shut up,
No,
Clara.
but this Cotinus, could I just say this Cotinus old fashioned. It's lovely. Smoke bush. They're a lovely plant. So, that's his talent.
That's his talent?
Yeah.
Would you say that's the only talent he's got?
I can answer that. Yes.
Oh, even Finn looks disgusted. What were you saying about that Cotinus, old fashioned? Do you know anything about it other than the fact that it's called old fashioned?
No, it's got you know, purplish and green. Well, it goes green and then it's purple.
I could be talking out
I
my
don't
ass,
know.
but I think
I'm talking out my
it
ass.
comes from Grace. I can't remember whether it's either a seedling or a sport from Grace.
Right.
Just
Well, I
like-
like it.
But it is very nice.
A lady came in yesterday and said she'd been looking for it for years and has never been able to find it.
Oh. Well. I don't know, I mean, you get plants because you like the look of them, don't you?
Yeah. What do you want?
Where's Boney, Pepper? Boney! Where's Boney? Oh, go and get Boney! Yeah! Where's Boney? I don't know where it's on. Oh, you got this ball.
Yeah, it's Bowley, not Boner. Yeah, dog's crap. We are in the midst of a gale. This week has been a really weird because we've had a heat wave, so we haven't been able to film much stuff. This camera is right up my hooter. We haven't been able to film much because of we've been practically watering non-stop. Now we've had a lot of rain, thunderstorms, and now we're in the midst of a gale, so I hope you can hear. What we're going to do, you've probably seen this in some very old videos, but it's part of our year, so we're going to be propagating these hostas. Now the thing about hostas is a lot of people propagate them either usually in the spring when the new shoots start coming through. They might chop them up into pieces, you know, divide them up, but we tend to do it in June, or we can go into July as well, but we tend to do them midsummer because we get a better plant next year. It makes it more sale worthy. So you choose your lump of hostas. I'm going to dig out this whole lump, and we're not actually yet sure which hosta this is, but we do need to dig out the whole thing. And just get off as much of the soil as you can. Now a lot of this root is unnecessary, so we can get rid of this. So what I'm going to do here, the clump is a little bit large because I really want to clean these roots up. So we're going to find out where there's a good division between But you can see we've got 6 or 7 nice little sections there, and we're just, this is why I use this pointed spade, because it gives me a little start, and that means when we come to clean these, we're not wasting or getting rid of lots of garden soil. And I can see there's a nice split there, again with the we've always worked on the with a nursery garden. You tend to plant things in threes. I know designers say you plant things in threes, but we can always replant a small piece back in here and then next year we can use one of the bigger lumps again. So we work on a rotation. In an ideal world, we don't always get it done. So we've got these sorted out. We'll end this little sequence here and I'll show you the next stage. For that we need to go and find some water. As you can see up here we have lots of hostas we can go at. With these I'll use a different spade and I'll cut through the clump because there's quite a range of them. But for now I just need to clean these up a little bit. It doesn't really matter what, oh bloody hell, what type of hosta you're doing. The process is the same for all of them. You want to get as much of that old soil away as possible. Now if you look here, you'll see there's some little dormant buds. There's another one round there. If we just left that, these little dormant buds, they wouldn't, only maybe 1 or 2 of them would fatten, and next year we'd have to, if we did it in the spring, we'd be taking 1 bud off. By taking this whole piece off, what we can do is get them dormant buds active by next spring, so that when the customer comes along, he doesn't see, for his 8 quid or whatever, he doesn't see 1 stem of hosta. He gets 3 or 4 in an ideal world. And we get a stronger plant. You might have to do this in a bucket or with a hose pipe. There's a lot of little adventitious roots down there as well. You can see these little roots, they're white-ended. You will learn in time to differentiate between buds and roots. But both are useful to us in this situation. There is a bud there. You can see it has more of a purple. Right, that's enough fucking about in the water. We'll go to the potting shed now. So we're going to get a knife and we're going to just start to cut. Try not to cut all the way through, just get yourself a start and then separate it out. And here, this one, I'm just going to keep it so it would probably be okay, but I want to show you something with that in a minute. We'll put that to one side. There's another one. So just get yourself a start. It's always better to separate and tear apart rather than cut. Here you can see the little buds there, little purple dormant buds. And one there, one there. You have to assess whether you're going to put these into 1 litre pots or you're going to put them into a smaller pot. Now you don't want to put them in too big a pot, but then you don't want to put a great big hosta into a pissy little pot. And a bit of old root like that, you don't want it. That one I just put over there. You can see there's some nice young roots coming here, and you can see down in there's some young roots. And if you can prise them apart like these, I see I can prise that up, but that one just needs to get a little start. You'll get used to it. Just a little start. And pull it apart. If there's a great big load of corky stuff on the bottom, I don't need all that root. So we're looking at that one and this one. Goes on there. So I'm going to get rid of some of this corky old growth. I don't really want it. It just gets in the way when you try and pot it up. You just want to, and that's all crap. We just get rid of that. So we've got our plants here separated. We're going to give them a little bit more treatment. You can see on this one there's a flower head. That's fuck all use, so we'll get rid of that. And then we'll cut them down to about, you really want 1 or 2 or 3 leaves at the most. Now that's a nice little thing. It's got a little bit of a shoot there, you see, a bit of adventitious root. But this old root down here, I'm just going to get rid of that, and that will encourage these young roots, young vigorous roots to grow. This one here, there's the flower stalk. We don't want that twat. Get rid of that. Cut the roots back, and once you get used to it, you're not so much nervous about it. You really can't bollocks this up. The important thing is what we do with them when we've got them potted. Just trim these roots back, and that one there. You get a feel for balance. If you've got too much leaf left on, the leaf will just sweat out, transpire out moisture, and the root isn't yet settled in. You know, it's not rooted into what we're going to pot it into. So we can just go through these, and you can do this with any hosta at this time of the year. I'm probably repeating myself, but you might as well see how we do it from start to finish, and then there's no ambiguity, or I haven't doctored anything, or here's one I prepared earlier. Oh, I don't know, that old balls. There's a little side bit there, you see. I'm just going to leave that, but I don't want all of this. You can feel it. It's just old root, old stem. Just tidy it up a little bit. Now that's not got a lot on it already. That's broken off, but that'll be all right. Not going to worry about that. Oops. You won't trim the root back quite as far. There's another one there. Another one there. Flower stem, really important to get rid of the flower stem. You don't want the plant trying to set seed, which is what it would do. You want the energy going into root production. You're trying to fool the plant into thinking it's got to reset a flower and root itself. Oh, and there's another one. Okay, so we're going to take all of these, and I'm just going to get some 9cm pots. Aha! Aha! I have found some. And are you photographing my house? That's bloody weird. Right. There is no need to fart on for hours with it. Just get them in there and put them well down and really firm them in, because I don't normally say firm plants in, but this is slightly different, because when you're doing potting on a shrub or a perennial or something like that, it's already rooted in, and you don't want to firm it. You want what the roots that it's got to go into the surrounding soil. With these, they're going to, if we don't firm them, they're going to rock around, and we want to keep them nice and firm. So I think that you'll get the idea now. Now the little piece that I was keeping back, I'm going to sacrifice for the sake of explaining something, and for English people that do Brussels sprouts, you just think how you used to prepare them. These days I don't do it. This is a little hosta, and if it's a shoot that's come through in the spring and you haven't got many of a variety, you can do something they call topping, and that's to take the shoot. Now this obviously is too old to shoot, but it would be a nice, when they're nice and purple or bluey purple in the spring and it's a nice pointy shoot, you can take it to just above where it's coming out, so that you end up with a piece like this. And you can take a knife and you can put a cross in it. This is a method known as topping, and you cut down like that into the heart of the plant, into the main root, and across again like this, like you used to do with the Brussels sprout. If you ever prepared Brussels sprouts for your gran or your mother, we used to put a cross in the bottom. Now it's really almost impossible for me to say, because this isn't firm and strong enough. Well, there's one that would be, so we can maybe do it with this. There, you can see down there, down like that. And you might want to use a thinner knife. A scalpel is excellent. And there you are, that's topping. Now you would take the shoot in the spring and grow it on like that, and you will get at least 2, possibly 3, sometimes even 4 that will grow out young plants, which you then cut apart. But you don't get a plant that year, you just get lots of little young plants. So that's topping of hostas. Very useful if you've got a rare or unusual one and you want to bulk it up to quantity a little bit quicker. So that's it. We will give these a good water. They'll be put in a rack like this, and then we'll put them somewhere shady. And it's really important to give them a really good soaking, just to bed them in well. I'll probably put them over in the shade house. In the end, we've got a 15 out of that little clump. I'm just going to give them a really good soak. And also, if you find that some of them keel over or the leaves break off, really don't worry. They may put on new leaf. They may not put on a lot of leaf, but they will put on root. And that's the important thing. And they've got the rest of summer to root away in. It really is the most effective way of, well, apart from microcrop, tissue culture. You can get thousands of the buggers then, but you can see the wind has wreaked havoc in here. So I'm just going to drop these down in here. And it's nice and shady and cool in here. And we'll just leave them there for a month and take another look at them. I don't think there's anything more to do in here. We'll have to wait until the wind stops and then have a go. Thank you. Come on, boys. It's belting down. We're getting through the latest order of stuff that came in earlier this week. Various bits and pieces. Very soon I'll have to start cutting down delphiniums to propagate from. Quick look around the veg through this week, because we are on a short week. I don't think there's going to be a lot of stuff to do this week because I've spent most of my time watering in there. We've had very hot weather. Now there are the red Brussels sprouts. They're doing really well. Cauliflowers. Those lettuce will be coming out soon and we'll put leeks in. Spring onions with little gem lettuce around them in the middle. They are working excellently, the spring onions. Really pleased with those around the outside. But we're going to have to start using the lettuce very soon. Broad beans are fine. Sweet corn. Runner beans. Peas, now the peas are developing plenty of peas. There we are. Loads of them. You can see they are doing well. Loads of flour coming. And they've been a revelation, those. More runner beans, sweet corn, later peas. No, I was very disparaged. Oh, the courgettes are doing fine. You can see these courgettes. We've got some decent things on those. Broad dwarf beans, they've really picked up. Last week's leeks, they're starting to move. Parsnips. Carrots I thinned out. We had a couple of feeds of baby carrots during the week and they've gone well. The other ones over the back we haven't thinned yet. The one thing I'm a little concerned about is the yellowing of the beetroot. So I'm giving it a bit of a feed, liquid feed. Let's see if it greens up a bit. Not quite sure why that is. That's hopefully it's not a failure, but we'll see. It could just be impoverished soil. Nothing else looks impoverished. Could be nitrogen impoverished, but the brassicas look okay. The legumes, the peas, the beans, they fix their own nitrogen, but the cabbage, the courgettes, parsnips, they all look green enough. The carrots look green enough. It's just those beetroot. It might be that they're too thick in there. Maybe I need to, or maybe just a little bit of feed will sort them out. No idea. We had an order of plants that I'm not allowed to propagate in. These are some contorted hazel, the red one, Red Majestic. These need potting up. They've been tied and trussed. They've come from the growers and they're trussed up like a fucking turkey. What we need to do, because it is such a lovely tree, this is what it turns into. And if you open up the bottom, you can see the Corylus Red Majestic. It's a lovely thing, and in the winter with all the twisted stems it looks incredible. You can see these green shoots down the bottom. They're from below ground, from the rootstock. You need really just to rub those out. But the twisted stems, and they're just I think it's great. Now we've got some of these Red Majestics. These are a type of contorted hazel, as you've seen. I've already got. But look here, you can see these are like on the main one outside that I was filming the other day. These are from below the graft line, so they're just normal hazel. So you just need to rub them out or cut them off. Now this has been trussed up to protect it against the wind and stuff. So we need, look at breathing a sigh of relief. Have you ever had a big dinner and sat down and your belt is so tight you've had to undo it? Well, I have to do that all the time because I'm a fat bastard. But these here, this is just a weed suppressant. So we're just going to open this up a little bit. We want to get some air and light around the, this is, and then just so that it can photosynthesize and do what it does in nature. But when it's all trussed up, it can't do that as well because the leaves are covering each other. Now, what I'm going to do here is probably just, I don't like lots of cane, so what I might do is just put one cane in and tie one to the cane like this, and that leaves that one free to grow where it wants. And it's quite simple to do. I'm just going to use a piece of twine. And this needs to grow on now for a month to 6 weeks. I am tempted just to put that out, but it looks too contrived if I do that. So we'll just leave the plant like that. But it's opened it up. The cane is a bit off centre, but we can't do anything about that. But it's nice and open now, so we can get some air around it as well. Now here's the thing. Our rabbit trap hasn't caught a rabbit in days. And whenever I try to get the platform to work, it's not working. And it's very distressing because I want to catch the rabbits because they're eating my bloody plants. Now, I had a look under here. Look at this. Talk about one pest protecting another. I'm going to turn this upside down. There. That was what was wedged underneath the platform. A bloody snail. Well, I don't like squashing them, so I shan't. And in any case, let's get him out, little bugger. Let's get him out. Why deprive a hedgehog or a thrush or a blackbird a good dinner? Let's stick him in the garden. Pests.
And you said we wouldn't finish them today. Yes, we would.
I have little faith, did I? I was lacking in faith. Mind yourself. There's a total eclipse here. There was a sun, but the moon's gone over the top of it.